on recording. Again, welcome to the webinar, The Healing Power of Medicinal Mushrooms. I'm going to talk today about why these are so important and where these come from and how they can benefit our health and how we can build this into our normal daily lifestyle, whether it's through supplementation and more so in the case that I enjoy cooking and eating these things. And they are so delicious and so flavorful in so many different meals. What I want to do now, though, is get into this. I'm going to take myself off of video so that we can focus on the screens. And you don't see my bed head this morning. It's Saturday here. I've been spending time with my family, enjoying them, and we just came back from the coffee shop. And so here we go. Let's stop this video here. And let's get into this. Here we go. Okay, awesome. So a little bit about myself here. That was me not too long ago. I went through a low point in my life, and even though I've been practicing holistic care for close to 30 years, sometimes our own bad attitude and isolation is very detrimental on our health. And this was no exception. Here I was, 50 pounds overweight at a low point, eating like crap. I'm sure I was drinking too much alcohol. I was still practicing and seeing patients, but more from the do as I say, not as I do mentality. I developed fatty liver, and you can see that belly. I really could not put my shoes and socks on very easily or comfortably on the right side in particular. That's where the liver was. And it was concerning to me. I went to my doctor, and my cholesterol got all messed up. I had super elevated triglycerides, and my liver enzymes were elevated, and I developed fatty liver. Look at that. And it was from eating too much, too often. I'm sure too many refined carbohydrates, just too much. All the things that we talk about that cause these problems. And, it was crazy because I'd go to the doctor and they would be like, do you have cirrhosis? Do you have hepatitis? Do you have HIV? We better work you up for liver cancer. We're going to do an ultrasound. Not one person ever asked me what I was eating. And again, I knew what I was doing, but I was medicating myself with food and I'm sure alcohol. It was just a low point. And so 50 pounds, it took me a while to really pull off all this weight, probably 10 years, really too long, because I stumbled around kind of knowing what to do, but paleo was becoming big, keto was becoming big. There was confusion about, carbohydrates and things. And I tried a lot of these different things, but I wasn't doing it right at all. And it wasn't really until I found fasting and intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting and fasting mimicking diets that I was able to really turn all this around. And now I'm back down to my high school weight of 185. Fatty liver completely gone, elevated liver enzymes completely gone, triglyceride levels in the normal, inflammatory markers, C-reactive protein was 17, and it's supposed to be below 1. And I just had that checked this summer. It's like 0.2. So everything that I talk about here and in subsequent webinars are things that have worked for me and have been really instrumental in reversing my health. Now, I want to talk about mushrooms today because I do use these, and I have practiced with practitioners, holistic healthcare practitioners, who were treating people who had cancer, and we used mushrooms a lot, and it was amazing to see the elevation in natural killer cell activity in their blood when using these medicinal mushrooms. So we're going to talk about the health benefits of mushrooms because they get overlooked and somewhat scary to people, and people don't know how to cook with them or how to ingest them or what the real benefits are. And so I want to kind of clear some of that up here today. As you can see, these things grow in our wilderness all over the place. And I'm not suggesting foraging, although I want to go learn how to do foraging and find medicinal mushrooms, because I know they're, edible mushrooms, because they're all over Colorado where I live, where people can ingest and get into these different things and enjoy eating these. So mushrooms belong in the fungus, right? They're fungal family, and they have 50% of our DNA is in this amazing plant, not plant. Mushrooms are more animals than they are plants, again, because they share 50% of our DNA. And there literally are thousands of different types of these out there. Certainly, some of them are poisonous, which is why I don't recommend necessarily going out and foraging on your own unless somebody can point these out. But in Colorado, there are morels and chanterelles and hawkwings and all kinds of different mushrooms. I wouldn't feel comfortable just plucking them out of the earth without someone sharing knowledge about that. And they grow really under the right conditions really easily, moisture and darkness, and the right temperature, and is what they need to grow. So it's they're pretty amazing. So they're also pretty powerful in detoxifying the forest and cleaning up hydrocarbons that they then utilize to grow with. They could be used as both food and medicine, and we'll talk a little bit about both of those, because I like to cook with them, although I do have some medicinal ones that I take kind of as a supplement. They're very eco-friendly. As you know, there's the magic mushrooms that have psilocybin and hallucinogenic properties, which now are really becoming to the forefront of benefits from research out of Johns Hopkins and NYU, New York University, and other very reputable universities at helping with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression, particularly around life-threatening conditions like cancer, and not just temporary resolution of these things, but very long-lasting and sometimes permanent resolution with just one dose. So very interesting here, and have been used in ceremony to heal people's woes for millennia, really, and not just tripping out, but more of a ceremonial and led with a shaman. And I think there's a lot of benefit to psilocybin mushrooms here. We'll talk a little more about. I live in Colorado, here in Denver. Magic mushrooms with psilocybin have been decriminalized in the last voting election. So that doesn't mean that they're legal. It doesn't mean that they're legal in the state. It means here in Denver, city and county of Denver, they are decriminalized, which means police will not arrest you for them. You can have them on your possession and in your home, and you can only grow them yourself for your own consumption. So it's pretty interesting what the constituents of the state are voting for, what we're seeing in universities, and the powerful benefits of these. It's interesting. Some say that mushrooms are from outer space because of all these powerful solutions that can be beneficial from these. And who knows? Really, we're all from outer space, right? Hundreds of millions of years ago, I'm sorry, let me back this up, mushrooms definitely did rule the earth. And look at these crazy things that were growing back then. This is sort of an artist rendering, but they were everywhere. Okay, so Lifecycle. So they have these spores that germinate and blown in the wind and connect through the earth through a network of roots. And we see this with trees, aspens, and other types of plants that have a network underground that allow these things to grow. And you may see mushrooms pop up after a good storm or moisture, and you're like, where did these things come from? It's through this network here where they pop in, and they start to then come out of the ground in different phases until they develop what we're more used to seeing, this mature fruit body where they have gills underneath. These gills house the spores that again then get released and the life cycle continues. Pretty interesting and self-sustaining. And again, they grow really popularly, very easily. Now, when we look at what's trending, certainly big buzzwords are mushrooms, and people are looking into them, and results of medicinal mushrooms and searches are increasing here, you can see. And like I said, we were using these at the early 2000s, late 90s, well before they were popular, Reishi and Maitake mushrooms in medicinal purposes, using these with patients who had cancer. And we would again measure their natural killer cell activity, and we could see these things increasing. Now there's 5, fairly common legal medicinal mushrooms. I've got a bonus one in here that I haven't seen too available recently, but I think we're going to start to see this 6th one show up more and more. But these things, again, you got to be careful plucking them out of the earth. I would not recommend them. But we're going to talk about turkey tail, Cordyceps, which has been around in the athletic community for quite a while, lion's mane, which is making a big forage into brain and nerve health, Chaga, I love this one here. It's got so many beneficial, and Reishi, and I mentioned that, and Maitake and Shiitake. These are other ones that you can eat and have great beneficial effects from. So this is what turkey tail looks like. It helps support the immune system and can be beneficial in the treatment and prevention of infectious disease, colds and flus, beneficial in the winter time, certainly. Can offer support with people who are on chemo. It makes chemo work better. Now, I'm not suggesting in any fashion here that you use this in place of medicines. I'm not recommending that you take my advice. I'm not your doctor. I'm not treating or diagnosing conditions. I am sharing information. This does not replace the need for medical care, medical diagnosis. So please don't take this that way. This is an informational only webinar. That's my disclaimer. But keep this in mind. And if you're going to use these with chemotherapy or other medications, it's worth a conversation with your physician. This PSK compound has been shown to strengthen the immune system. Again, we saw that these mushrooms can pull toxins out of the air and convert them into carbohydrates. A lot of these things are sugars and carbohydrates that are within the mushroom that are beneficial for our digestive system, and same here, or immune system, but same here. These compounds also have prebiotics that feed good bacteria in our body. So other things that we eat regularly that are prebiotics are onions and garlic and apples and let's see, what else? Leeks and artichokes and things like this. So these things are in the same family of prebiotics to feed good bacteria. And again, with chemo, and again, we saw this a lot in our clinic where natural killer cell activity increased with the use of mushrooms. Interesting, this one, Cordyceps, found generally in mountainous regions, definitely boosting the immune system, increasing energy levels, and athletes have been using this for a long time because of the ability as a bronchodilator and lung support. So you can see here, can help relieve asthma and bronchitis, beneficial in rejuvenating the skin. Now, you're not going to eat them like this. These generally come in a form of a supplement that would be beneficial. Also good for heart arrhythmias and other cardiac issues, and can be beneficial in producing healthy cholesterol and healthy kidney function. This is another one I really love, Chaga. These things, they don't all grow in the ground. We'll see Reishi, and as you can see, Chaga here can grow in trees. on trees, down trees, in tree stumps. I got turned on to this one a couple years ago by a company I'm going to recommend, no affiliation with, but a good source. And this is sort of my go-to elixir, Chaga. Again, partially here we see this because of the immune system benefits of this T cells and interleukin-6, beneficial for our immune system function, can be beneficial again in viral viruses and helping prevent virus formation. It certainly has been known to decrease inflammation, and a lot of this can be found on PubMed. If you just go to pubmed.com, it's the government website of peer-reviewed research, and there's a lot of research on mushrooms out there. It can help with physical endurance, and in combination with cordyceps, athletes have been using this in that fashion for a long time. What is the ORAC value? This is the antioxidant level is so very, very high, very powerful antioxidant as well. This is a great one here, lion's mane. Lion's mane is very beneficial to the central and peripheral nervous system. Let me see here. There we go. Promotes natural occurring growth factors, which we have in our body: insulin-like growth factor, brain-derived growth factor, and that's what we're talking about here. Protects the brain from neurodegeneration, and is helpful with improving acetylcholine functions in certain health conditions, and muscle contraction. And muscle contraction, this occurs at the neuromuscular junction with acetylcholine. Just really helpful for nerve functions. I've been recommending it for cognitive function, neurocognitive impairment, if you're forgetful, if you feel like you're aging and you're not remembering things as well, if you've had a history or family history of central nervous system issues like maybe Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. Also, I recommend it for people with nerve issues, neuropathic pain, which really doesn't have a good treatment for it. Neuropathic pain is when the nerves just are firing for random conditions, and if you have this, you know, it feels like ants crawling all over your skin. A lot of people get this from diabetes. They'll develop neuropathic pain from alcoholism. And then there's what's called idiopathic neuropathic pain, which means we don't know what causes it. And there's no great drugs for this out there on the market. A lot of the medications are just central nervous system suppressors. And no one really likes that for long periods because it just suppresses your function. And a lot of those drugs come with side effects like weight gain and poor sleep. Lion's mane is also beneficial for mood enhancement and, like we talked about, reverse cognitive disorders. Now, reishi is a powerful mushroom, grows off of trees. It's really very beautiful. And it's not even like what we think of as mushrooms where they're soft and pliable. These things are more like a wood. Same with that chaga mushroom we looked at before. But this has been used for thousands of years in China, and has an ability to tap into deeper parts of our brain and nervous system, and give us maybe enlightenment now. And that's a lot of the reason it was used so much in China. Beneficial at increasing microcirculation. Where might that be a benefit? Again, with neuropathic pain, maybe in men with erectile dysfunction where there is microcirculation, maybe in people who have Raynaud's condition where the blood vessels to the distal extremities and the fingers and toes doesn't work very well and they get very white and cold. This could be beneficial. And everywhere where we have microcirculation to our skin. This also is great at modulating blood sugar levels. Now, you know, in conjunction with a good diet that's not elevated, high in glucose or in refined carbohydrates or sugars, this would be beneficial. It would be beneficial maybe if you had another condition with elevated blood glucose levels like maybe diabetes or pre-diabetes, which there's 100,000 Americans with pre-diabetes, so kind of a serious condition here. But again, you know, I don't like to use supplements or even natural foods like this when we need to fix our diet and lifestyle first, because using this while eating poorly is no different than just taking a drug for this. And so root cause is more important than just balancing blood sugar like a drug with a mushroom. Also good in the brain, and some studies show that it may be beneficial at deplaquing the brain. And studies show that it can reduce inflammation numerous ways and increase different beneficial healing factors. So reishi, again, helpful for the liver, very beneficial for kidney function, and as we talked about, beneficial for brain function. And we're going to talk about how to get this stuff into your body. I saw one this big. I was just shocked to see this reishi mushroom, again, growing out of the side of a tree. This is where they grow a lot, but it's as hard as wood. Really blew me away to see this. Promotes detoxification, improves exercise, beneficial in weight management. Again, probably due along to the fact of managing blood glucose, but again, that's better managed with diet and lifestyle first, and then addressing and fine-tuning with mushrooms. Regulates a healthy appetite, and can benefit, improve sleep, and improve the autonomic nervous system. What is the autonomic nervous system? Well, that is the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system that we talk about. Sympathetic, which is sort of the fight or flight system, which gets ramped up with cortisol, with stress, with caffeine, with some drugs, or the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relax, rest and digestion, sleep, orgasm, and just connecting with people. Now, here's an interesting one, erinaceus blazei mural. I just stumbled across this looking at some studies on diabetes. And interesting, this one's had a couple really good randomized controlled trials on its effects in tumor, infection, allergy, and inflammation, and in combination with metformin, or this other drug, glyceride, which improves insulin resistance in type 2 diabetics. So we saw that with some of the other mushrooms prior to balancing glucose levels. We're seeing it with another mushroom here, not so common as some of the other ones, but certainly beneficial in management of blood glucose levels. So these things, these mushrooms have a lot of benefit for us. Oh, here's the sympathetic part of the nervous system, parasympathetic, and different functions that occur with these mushrooms in balancing out the autonomic nervous system, which I mentioned earlier. The sympathetic, the stress reaction, the blood to the muscles, deterring blood from the digestive system, run, fight, flight, versus the parasympathetic, which involves digestion, relaxation, orgasm, sleep, like that. And then here's the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, the vagus nerve and other cranial nerves coming out of the brain and coming down into the digestive tract and into the reproductive organs as well. So this part of our nervous system is generally not under our control, but can be balanced with foods, with supplements, and I think really where we have control of it is with meditation and mindfulness. So how do you consume more of these? Certainly you can eat them. I love, I grew up in an Italian family. We did grow up eating mushrooms. We did forage for mushrooms. And so I enjoy cooking with them. I saute them in olive oil and garlic. Sometimes I'll eat that combo with a steak or with some meat. We use mushrooms like cremini, which also have beneficial benefits with as tacos. You can make this stuff up as meat, and it can taste like meats. And so we saute those up with potatoes and make mushroom potato tacos. This is a great recipe here, miso mushroom soup, where you can get different kinds of mushrooms and chives and garlic and miso paste, which is so beneficial to the gut flora because it's a fermented food, bouillon stock, and make a great soup out of this. Miso soup is good for digestion. You get the mushrooms in there, and is very delicious and filling before a meal or as an appetizer or as a great snack. I'll leave this up for a second so you can take a look at that. But you know, the Japanese use miso soup with sushi as a protectant to the GI tract in case there's anything in the raw fish that could cause GI symptoms. Pretty interesting there. Let's see, again, we mentioned that this is poised to continue to grow, and they're sustainable, they're eco-friendly, they have a multitude of benefits, they have very little to no side effects, especially if you're consuming them as food. Also, lastly, I want to mention here that if you are in a place where you are looking for inner answers, because we mentioned that back here, maybe they can be our teachers. Magic mushrooms, psilocybin, is a real thing, and Michael Pollan has written a book about them. He's a great writer. I encourage his book. The name of it's slipping right now. If you go to pubmed.com and look for psilocybin mushrooms, you can find a lot here on the beneficial effects. If you go to Johns Hopkins University, they're spending millions on research here with a very narrow focus with cancer patients with terminal cancer and looking at their ability to manage their stress and depression and anxiety around that life-threatening diagnosis. And really a lot of long-term benefit is what they're finding with really just one dose. Michael Pollan talks about this in his book as well. So I encourage you take a look at that, and don't do these things really on your own. If you're interested in a spiritual teacher from mushrooms, I encourage you find someone who can lead you on a journey and guide you through these, because some things do come up with that. I want to encourage you to take a look at the trainforlongevity.com website, where we post a lot of content on health, fitness, working out, and diet and exercise. I put a lot of content out there. My buddy Kevin Rail is a fitness professional in Park City, Utah. As you can see, he walks the talk there in his picture. We've got a great Facebook page, Train for Longevity Fitness Over 40, where we talk about a lot of these things. We do live events here in Denver where you can join us for a workout. We just did a kettlebell clinic, and afterwards we talked about the beneficial effects of and the common themes between keto and paleo and intermittent fasting. So we like to bring this live as well. So I encourage you to check these places out for more resources. And then lastly, if you would like to find ways to really either implement this or get a handle on your health as you age, I would encourage a free 30-minute strategy session. And, you know, my focus here is reversing middle age. Like I showed you, that picture of me, that was in my 40s. I'm in my mid-50s now, and I'm focused on healthy aging because aging is really a disease in America. The more exposure we have to aging, which we all do, the greater our risks of everything increases. And let me give you an example of that. Smoking increases your risk of cancer 5-fold. Being over 50 increases your risk of cancer 100-fold. So there are ways, medicinal mushrooms, diet, exercise, certain nutritional supplements, certain kinds of fasting to slow down the aging process and put those aging genes on the back burner, because the more exposure we have, the greater our risks of developing age-related conditions, which are really diabetes and hypertension and cardiovascular disease and arthritis and dementia and cancer. These are the biggies that are starting to occur. So I want to encourage a free 30-minute strategy session with me. Now, I told you I was going to give you some recommendations for supplements, mushroom supplements. One of my go-tos is 4-Sigmatic, the number 4, SIGMATIC. They've done a great job of cultivating natural mushrooms. I've used the Chaga. I've used some other blends of their mushrooms. These things mix really well in just hot water and are a great source of access to ingesting these into your diet as part of a healthy diet and lifestyle. 4sigmatic.com. I have no relationship with them, no affiliate with them, none of that. I just think it's a great supplement. I've tried some other ones that I've picked up from either the health food store or through supplement vendors that I purchase supplements by for my clinical practice. And blends of these mushrooms, you can get blends. I like a blend as well, but they taste a little earthy. So you got to find a way to either work them into a hot tea, which is good, or into a smoothie. I've used them in foods before, and they're good. Sometimes I'll use them with broths and cook with them that way. But there's ways to get these in. You don't need a ton of them every day. A teaspoon, and at the 4-Sigmatic, just a dose of their tea a day. They've got, again, Chaga, Cordyceps, blends, Reishi, Maitake, and take a look there. So listen, I want to thank you for tuning in. Check out our resources on our website, trainforlongevity.com, or our Facebook page. And then if you'd like a 30-minute strategy session, like where should you start addressing these things, I would be glad to help point you in the right directions. All right, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your interest and effort, and we will see you in the next webinar next month. All right, take care. Thank you.